All right, what is up, everybody? We are back for another episode of our weekly Wednesday live Q&A. And this week, I have a special guest, kind of going off of last week's topic. With Carl coming on, he just kind of came up all of a sudden. This one was planned. So tonight, I have top natural pro bikini athlete, Julie Schnepp. I almost said her maiden name, Julie Schnepp. Coming on. She'll be joining us just momentarily. So, I do want to say something about Julie, just kind of introduce her a little bit, because some of you, I know, obviously know her. A couple other people may not actually know who Julie is. So what we're going to do, Julie should be joining us momentarily, but she's been competing for a while. She's actually going to be competing again this year. And it says right now I can't bring Julie on camera at this time, so hopefully we'll get that figured out. But we'll see. She's going to be competing this year. She's actually done very well within the sport thus far. If I do recall, she competed last in 2016, I believe, and she placed second at the IPE Worlds. So I'm really looking forward to watching her compete again this fall. She'll be going again at another world title, hopefully. And hopefully we get her to come on here. They can't join your broadcast at this time. Julie, you're letting me down. You're letting the fans down. She's probably freaking out right now, guys. But just bear with her, and hopefully we'll get her on here in a sec. But for whatever reason, it said that I can't add her to the live broadcast. And once again, this is live, so it's unfortunate, that shit doesn't always go our way. But here we are, and hopefully Julie gets her act together. But in the meantime, and it looks like we're going to figure this out here in a sec. So what we're going to do is we're going to try this. And I might go to add her husband, Thomas, and we're gonna because I can add Thomas, and I hope he doesn't mind us stealing his phone. But this is how we're gonna do things, guys. So let's get Julie on, and we're gonna get things going. Hopefully, it'll just add them in a second. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm sure Julie feels bad. Hopefully, Thomas doesn't mind. We'll see, guys. Bear with me. Like I said, this is live. So,
I'm driving home.
is free. Oh, dude. Oh, my God. This is not good. All right.
Looks like we're gonna... Call me back.
Okay. I'm going to stall. So, anyway, I got to... We're going to see if... That was pretty funny, guys. I'm so sorry. Julie probably feels terrible. Thomas is almost home. So what we're going to do is we are going to wait for Thomas to get home. But I'm actually going to start with the questions because a lot of you guys are rolling in right now. So I will handle the first few. And then when Julie comes on, we will start... with hers. I know a lot of people are probably tuning in expecting Julie. We're having some technical difficulties on her end. Her husband's going to get home, fix the issue. We're probably going to steal his phone, but we will continue anyway. All right, so Bronwyn asked. Bronwyn was actually one of my clients, and she says, how do you deal with hormones and bloating when you're closer to a show? What if you lose? Okay, so we'll start there. We'll start with that one. So this past weekend, I was in Virginia, and actually one of my clients started her peak week out with her period. And what happened with that? Like, she did gain some weight. We realized it wasn't fat, it was just water weight. And we actually just had her keep pounding some water. And then when, and I'm bringing Julie on now, when we gave her water after her period subsided after a few days, the weight came back down, she tightened up. So unfortunately, if you were to get your period the day before the show, the day or two before the show, it's unfortunate, and that's not something that you could really deal with. It's just kind of how the cookie crumbles. And I made a comment to some people around there. And here's Julie, and I'm going to finish with what the question that I'm on right now, and then we'll kind of get into Julie's. But she's with us anyway. So if you were to get your period like the day or two before the show, that's something that you can't deal with. All you can do, is try to drink as much water as possible. Still try to hit, your peak week plan. And then, so Julie, now that you're officially with us, Bronwyn asked, what happens or what do you do if you were to lose your menstrual cycle and like the negative effects that can have? So, I mean, obviously, like I know Julie personally, like I know that she's lost her menstrual cycle before. She's talked about it openly. So go ahead and field that question for us.
So just to reiterate, the question is what happens if you lose it?
Yeah. So, actually, sorry. Bronwyn asked, what if you don't lose your menstrual cycle and your show day falls on the same day? So I kind of just covered, like, if you do you have your period on the same day? And I guess I'll start with this, and then we could still talk about, like, if you were to lose your period. So ideally, like, it would probably be a good thing for people not to lose their period because that means, like, their body's in, like, really, really deep starvation mode. And, I know that Julie's lost hers before. So Bronwyn's, I guess I'll get your opinion. I gave my 2 cents on it already. But what if your period, let's say, were to fall, like, the day before your show or the day of? Like, how would you go about doing that?
Yeah, so I think one of the key components in competing and getting ready for a show day is, as cliche as it sounds, if you're going to get your period and it's show day, you cannot stress. I know it's easier said than done, but the body responds to stress instantaneously in terms of water retention and just not looking, oh, I'm horizontal, not looking your best. So I would personally try and not stress about it. Like, as cliche as it sounds, if you wake up in the morning and you are on your period, at that point in time, there's other than drinking water and kind of just trying to keep your stress levels down, there's not a lot you can do. If you know you're going to have your period, I would say like a few days out, drink water. I know it sounds silly because water, you'd think like you might look fuller, but water would flush out any fluid retention that you do have. I also like to drink, or personally I will have some girls drink, I've seen like a light diuretic dandelion root tea. Not like prescription strength diuretic or anything, but just something that would like kind of tighten things up and help promote like digestion or any bowel movements. It's a weird sport. It's not glamorous, but we'll go there. I mean, you just kind of want to keep things as stress-free as possible. Honestly, I would laugh. I would wake up and I would laugh and I would say, well, at least it's happening now and we can learn how to deal with it for the next show. But if you can prevent it, also, if you can track your cycle, it's possible to either, I would say, try and avoid, if you are still having your period, try and avoid a show within 2 weeks of your cycle, because I see a lot of water retention the first 2 weeks leading up to your cycle, and then once you actually start bleeding, and that's when the bloat would subside. So it's perfectly possible to plan shows around your cycle if that's something that you're familiar with.
Absolutely. And then I actually, and this is when you were off the video, I was talking about Jen competing this past week. She had her period, like it started on like Monday of peak week. And we did basically exactly what you said. Like, we drank a lot of water. We actually put her on a mild diuretic, and not like a super strong one or anything. And within like 4 days, like she was looking fantastic. She was back to normal. So I'm glad to hear that, you use that approach as well.
Sure.
All right. And then Ashley Andrews said, there's a couple things under this one. Do you think that food tests to see how certain foods affect your body should be considered, if financially available, of course, when going into a prep? So I guess she's dealing, or she's getting into more like food allergies. I know we've touched on this before, but once again, you're my special guest, so you have the right of way on these questions. So go ahead and take that one.
So the question was, if the finances allow, do I suggest getting like a test that would kind of hint at if you have any food intolerances or
Yep.
inabilities to digest certain foods? I'm not familiar with these types of tests, but I would say anything is good to learn about your body before you go into a dieting phase. Especially given the fact that I've seen a lot of people who have digestive issues outside of prep, they only get worse during a dieting phase. Your ability to digest food, for some, I think especially in females, becomes a little bit more difficult. And if you can gain as much knowledge as you can about your body before the stress of dieting begins, I would be 100% for it. So if chances are, if you have issues digesting dairy and you're in your off season, you're still going to have issues digesting dairy during your prep, and if not worse.
True.
So yeah, I'd be all for it. But once again, don't let it be like a make or break thing. I know I've done it.
Yep.
I've never gotten it done, and I've prepped fine, and I've seen other girls never gotten it done. But if you can do it, I don't see why you wouldn't want to.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, why not?
Right, absolutely. I guess I will touch on this just briefly as far as digestion goes, and I'll kind of interject, here and there in regards to what Julie's saying, just to kind of add some knowledge to this. One reason why digestion obviously might not be as ample as it is in the off season is obviously the decreased calories. If we're not eating as many, we're just not going to be excreting as many. Secondly, obviously, another big thing is just overall fiber intake during a contest prep. As that food comes down, the overall fiber intake is going to come down too if you don't watch that closely. So that's why digestion just might not be on point. All right. Now, Ben asked, how do you gauge leanness and at an overall balanced physique, given the class doesn't require, shredded to the bone? So Ben is a young body-inspired bodybuilder. He's actually a very knowledgeable kid for being, I believe, 16 years old. He always asks these really good questions. Now, as we know, bikini is not necessarily as clear-cut as, let's say, bodybuilding, like myself. So I know what kind of package you like to bring, but that's you in particular. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'll give you the floor and just saying this is maybe where you could bring up different organizations. This is where you could bring up, different girls' strengths and weaknesses. So go ahead and talk about overall leanness and good balance, or what you like to see in regards to bikini.
Sure. So I think his original question was, how do you gauge leanness when leanness is a factor, but it's not the overall factor, but it's somewhat of a factor.
True.
So if he doesn't know, or if what some people don't know about bikini is, you'll often hear that bikini is judged from the down. That is that's a big component. So if someone's dieted enough, I would say, where their upper body is lean, but their lower body is not, then they need to keep pushing. It's judged from the waist down, essentially, in terms of glute development and glute mass, but in terms of overall symmetry, it's a complete package. So when gauging leanness, if your glutes are if they still have some fat on them, then you gotta keep dieting. There's no, I have veins in my arms and in my shoulders year round. I've gained 20 pounds and I am still in my upper body year round. But when I'm dieted down, it takes me almost 15 to 20 pounds to lose before I have a little bit of separation in my hamstrings, before I have a little bit of separation in my quads. And that's personally what I like to see. I don't like to see cross striations in my quads, or feathers in my quads, or feathers in my hamstrings, or but a little bit of muscle separation is key. And I would say I don't care if your upper body is super lean, if your lower half is still your leanness on. I hope that's somewhat helpful.
Yep. Oh, it is, and definitely, and I think, I think this needs to be said as well. Just most ladies, and I think you would agree with this, typically hold more fat in their lower halves. Men, on the majority of the time, they hold a lot of fat in their upper bodies, right? Like they hold fat in their stomachs. Like for example, like in myself at least, I hold most of my weight, in my midsection, in my lower back. My legs are fairly lean year round, like you're saying your upper body is. But the majority of the time, and sure, it's a case by case difference, but the majority of the time, women's legs just tend to be fatter, and that's just, it is what it is.
Well,
And that, it was a good point on your part. Like no matter how good your upper body is, you have to have a lean lower body.
absolutely, and I want to add to that too. And I saw his question earlier today, and if you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint, women scientifically are designed evolutionary to hold babies. Like that's what our bodies are meant to do, and our babies live
Right.
and grow, and they're held in our lower half. And in order to keep the growing baby warm and nurtured, you gotta have the fat down there to kind of like make sure that the baby survives. So genetically, that's why a lot of women hold more fat down there, just because we're trying to like make sure society advances and that human race continues on. So whenever women get frustrated about like, oh my gosh, I can't lose weight in my butt or my legs or my hips, like don't discredit yourself. Like there's a reason why it's there. So it just sucks getting rid of it.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good point. I guess I never really thought of it like that. All right, so Holly asked, and Holly's actually another one of my clients. She asked, we'll start with this one. What does your typical peak week look like? Now, I know we're asking maybe for the secrets here, but what does your usual peak week resemble, if you could tell us?
Well, honestly, mine personally, I tend to, in my opinion, and this is basically my peak week looks like coach tells me it is. So I don't design, I'll preface this, I don't design my own peak week. I listen to my coach, but in what I've historically done is I diet kind of for a long time for Bikini. I dieted for 27 weeks my last season. So I was essentially kind of lean enough. My hamstrings were in, my glutes were in. I looked lean in my lower half about, I would say, probably 4 weeks out from my first show. And at that point, we were kind of able to, it wasn't necessarily any more fat to lose. It was just to the point of keeping me like full, yet not too full, yet lean. Because if I start to lose muscle tissue and just look sloppy. So my peak week was smaller, a little bit less carbs than my normal carbs for about 3 days. And I think the Wednesday before my show, we loaded me up on, I think my refeed was 450 grams of carbs the Wednesday before my show. And then that kind of filled me back out, and we kind of coasted into it. But a lot of times with peak week, I was sending pictures to my coach every morning. She would gauge where I was at, if I needed more food, if I needed less food. We kept salt in, we kept water in. We did take out artificial sweeteners, so no protein shakes, protein bars, Splenda, stevia, anything like that. And then with Bikini, a lot of peak week, we're spent, I mean, this is just part of it. We spend time shaving, we spend time exfoliating, we have to get our nails done, perfecting, if you need your hair colored, you need to make sure all your makeup is ready to go, you need to make sure your bags are packed, you need to make sure your suit is ready, makeup, jewelry, all that, like, you kind of put together during your peak week. It's the physical element and the stage element that kind of comes together.
Right. Absolutely. So I guess another part of Holly's question, and you could kind of answer these, together, I guess, is like, when do you typically have your last cardio session, if you're doing any cardio at that time? And then also like your lifting session. So do you lift like up until the day before the show, or do you do cardio the day of the show, day before the show, or where do you typically cut that out?
For me, I think my last prep, I was doing, I think about 30 minutes during peak week every morning except for Friday. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
Okay.
I would just do on an empty stomach with some
Right.
BCAAs. I would have my coffee in one, BCAAs in the other, and I would just do 30 minutes of cardio. And then training in the evenings, just because it worked well for my schedule. I like to get up and get my cardio in, pose a little bit, and then go to work, and then go back to the gym.
Yep.
I would do light training. So higher reps, not a lot of heavy compound movements, more so movements at lower weight for higher reps to just make sure that all the food that I was ingesting was kind of getting back into my body and keeping me from going too depleted yet.
Yeah, right on. All right. You kind of cut out there for a sec.
I did not cardio the Friday before my show. So last cardio session, last training session, all of that was done Thursday.
All right. Okay, right on, right on. I caught the tail end of that. For whatever, the connection's just not 100% par right now, but I think everybody else heard it. It might have been just me. But you are currently frozen. I don't know if it's my connection or Julie's connection. Hopefully I'm still streaming. I might have to field this one if Julie has to back out. We'll see. All right, so Julie's still here. Her video is just frozen on my end. So how does it want? They said we're all right. Holly said we're both frozen. So let me back out Julie real quick and see if we could add her back in just in a second. So we're going to cover Jimmy's question right now. And we're going to say, let's read Jimmy's question and then we'll get there. How does one gauge macronutrient adjustments with hormonal changes in female athletes / clients? This could be addressed to both of us. So Jimmy, that definitely is tough in regards to working with female clients. And part of the struggle, which we talked about earlier, was just the general fluctuation from week to week with females' menstruation, right? Because Julie was talking earlier about her weight going up a couple weeks even before her period were to start, and how that can be difficult. So what you have to do in regards to macronutrients and cutting them is you have to be very patient, in my opinion, because if you make a ton of unnecessary cuts, then what's going to happen is that you're going to run out of room very quickly. And I feel like that's where a lot of people make errors, is when they actually cut too quickly when they see the scale go up, especially females, because what happens is, the weight goes up and then you think they might have gained fat, but in reality they just gained water, and then you cut even more out, and that's tough to handle. So you really just have to take your time and be patient in regards to like making adjustments. So if you see, and that's why I have my clients at least tell me like when they're starting their periods or where they're at in their cycle, because that plays a huge factor in it. And if you're not patient enough, and then you go to cut calories down, you're going to run out of room. So we are trying to bring Julie back here momentarily, guys. I would really like her opinion on that as well. Between her and Thomas, we're trying to get things figured out. But we will continue to move on. Once again, I'm sorry that this video is not necessarily working out to the best of our abilities here. but we're going to give it a go. And Amy asked another question. We'll circle back once we get Julie. Okay. Anyway, we're back. As I told Julie, sometimes these videos just don't go smoothly, so that's okay. Jimmy asked, how does one gauge macronutrient adjustments with hormonal changes with female clients? So I gave my answer, which obviously you did not hear, but I would like your opinion on the matter of how to adjust someone's macros in regards to like their period and their weight changes.
Sure. So basically, I am very aware of, and I try to be aware of how much weight, because it's not weight, it's water.
Yeah.
How much weight do you gain, or I guess what's the pound difference on the scale 2 weeks out from your period?
Right.
Typically, it depends on the female. I would say it's anywhere you could see like 2 to 5 pounds heavier the week before your period, and then the week of your period, you kind of see it drop back down. So essentially, the week before, you're let's say you're dieting, and then all of a sudden the scale goes up 5 pounds, and you're like, what's going on? So you be aware of what is the norm. So if it normally goes up 5 pounds a week before your period, then it's probably just part of the deal of being a female. So I don't like to make a lot of changes during that week because it's false information that you're going off of. So I like to, like I said, be aware of what's the norm and anticipate the norm and kind of wait for it to be over. However, if you know that all of a sudden, like, your weight goes up and you're not expecting your period, then something else needs to be done. Or the scale doesn't move, then something else needs to be done. And on that note, too, I will say that even in photos, you look different. So as tempting as it is to want to like panic and like be like, what's going on? Like, I need to either up my cardio or decrease my macros to get some progress. You kind of just have to wait it out. And I will say the longer you spend dieting, once again, one of the biggest reasons why I like to diet for as long as I do, the more time you have to adjust to those fluctuations. You have to like go a little bit slower and be more cautious with making changes. If you only diet for 12 weeks, you have like 16 pounds to lose or 20 pounds to lose, you don't have a lot of time to not make decisions. So I guess long story short, I would wait it out, know what's normal, anticipate it, and go from there and see what happens when you finish up your cycle.
Right. Yep, absolutely. All right, so Amy asked, and this will be the last question that we'll take off of the previous Facebook questions, and then we'll roll into the Instagram ones. Amy asked, thoughts on building in a maintenance phase. So I guess she's more or less referring to, like taking an appropriate off season. Maybe we could touch on the length, but I'll kind of let you run with this one, and we'll kind of see where we get with it.
Oh, fun question. So thoughts, I'm just going to like answer her question directly because I'm a pretty direct person. Thoughts on building in a maintenance phase? Not a fan. Honestly, unless you're very, very new to lifting, I don't think building in a maintenance phase is very optimal. Maybe you could say like, maybe you might like recomp, like you might have the same weight, but like recomp and build a little bit of muscle and burn a little bit of fat, but only because you're building muscle, but then you're not really increasing your calories and gaining weight, so really you're not gaining as much muscle as possible. So I will say, like, being a natural athlete, I don't know if you preface this or if it's an obvious thing, but I'm a natural athlete. I don't take any growth agents. I don't take any steroids to promote growth. Like, it's a natural process. And the more natural someone is,
Yep.
the slower progress will be. So I'm not saying go out and build 10 pounds a month. Like, that's not a smart idea, because naturally you're not going to build 10 pounds of muscle in 1 month. That's just irresponsible and reckless. So I don't think building in a maintenance phase is the best possible scenario. I will say that maximize your off season, pick a pace that makes sense, and go with that. Increase your calories every time you're possibly able to. Like, the thing about off season and building phases is they sound so long. Like, I'm starting my diet next month after being in a maintenance phase or an off season for 18 months, and you think like 18 months is a really long time, but it's not. It fly, and I'm a huge advocate for maximizing it. And once again, I compete in the bikini division, so the amount of muscle that we're essentially required to have is not that caliber of a bodybuilder. So my long off season of 18 months is not that long compared to some other athletes.
Yeah.
But I would say embrace your off season. Don't even bother trying to maintain your weight unless the only time I will say like it's appropriate to maintain your weight, I guess, in an off season is probably towards the end. And that's like the very, very end. So like, for example, like I said, I'm coming off of an 18-month off season. I've gained the weight that I've essentially wanted to gain. I feel good. I look good. To just keep pushing like more weight gain the last 4 weeks, it's not really necessary. So I'm kind of working on slowly figuring out my appropriately start my diet calories. So not a fan. Don't waste your time. You'll regret it. Like
no, absolutely. And I would agree with that as well. And it's kind of funny that you're talking about like extended off seasons, and you're talking about months, 18 months or so. Like mine, my off season, it's gonna be stage to stage. It's gonna be a total of 3.5 years, and basically, 2.5 of those years or more is gonna be in a caloric surplus. And that's me. I mean, if you gotta gain muscle, like you definitely have to be in a caloric surplus. And maybe, I don't look as good, but at the end of the day, like my goal is not to necessarily look fantastic year round. Like my goal is to try to build as much muscle as I possibly can. And obviously, being a bodybuilder, like that's the main goal. So obviously we're in 2 different categories, but the theme remains the same, is that you need to take off seasons. You need to be in a surplus in order to gain muscle. All right. So we're going to switch over to the Instagram questions. And I'm sure that if they're on your Instagram, you probably would have gotten a lot more. But, here I am, not as famous as Julie. So we're going to go off of mine. And Ashley asked a few, so we'll just, we'll take our time with them. Ashley CBT asked, do you use any fat burners during your contest prep?
Oh, that's an easy question. Yes, I actually do. I don't use them like as my main source and my main ability to burn fat. If anything, at best, I think fat burners are a really concentrated source of caffeine. And caffeine essentially kind of gives you the energy to get the cardio done and get through the day and get your weightlifting done and get your meal prep done and get your job done and all that stuff. And it's also an appetite suppressant. So I guess like I don't necessarily yes, I do use fat burners. I don't rely on them to burn fat. I just kind of rely on them to either suppress my appetite, give me energy. They kind of taste good. You can drink like a thermogenic powder. I think Core Nutritionals has Core Burn, which is a thermogenic fat burner kind of thing. Also soda.
Yes.
And those ones, they kind of just help give you energy, suppress appetite. I will use them like more so mid-prep or towards the end of my prep. I would never start out my diet on like all the caffeine and all the fat burners and all the supplements. Like I would use that, probably implement it halfway through or whenever I needed it. And another advantage, sometimes it can like make you feel warm. Like I know some of the products out there, as you lose body fat, like your ability to just kind of like sweat and just like feel warm goes away. And when I work in an office, so it's nice to like have that other like source of warmth. But yeah, I do use them. I'm not like a believer that they're gonna make or break your prep. Get your nutrition down, get your training down, get your water down, get your sleep down, get your stress down, and then if you want to do it, go for it. But otherwise, it's just like kind of a waste of money if you have the money for it. But if not, you don't need it.
Right on. All right, so actually, she asked a few here, and I thought this one was interesting. Obviously, Bikini. I mean, it's not necessarily new to me, but I don't know like all the ins and the outs. So I was most curious about this question. And she said, "How do you decide your suit color, and if you can to compete in national organizations versus the NPC?"
Okay, so I think probably mostly everybody on here watching is familiar with like the bodybuilding world, but in case anybody isn't, in Bikini you are judged on your overall look, which includes your suit. So suit selection is huge. It's really important. And I don't know if this is like cheating or like if this sounds like lazy, but I look for a pro bikini competitor that looks like me, and I look and see what suit she's wearing and if it looks good on her, and I don't reinvent the wheel. My last suit, I wore a red suit, and it had red stones on it, and I saw one of my favorite pro bikini competitors that does well in that type of suit, and I was like, so I honestly look for people that do well in the bikini division and have a good stage look and a good stage presence, and you can kind of mimic that. I'm not saying you can't like make it your own, but it's like that phase, like if it's not broke, don't try and fix it. And on that note too, I will say, like with choosing suits, if you don't know, like if you go out and you search and you're trying to find somebody that looks like you, that has your skin tone, that has similar eye color, hair color, just complexion and overall kind of look, if you can't find that, pick a color that you like feel confident in. I don't feel confident in like pastels. I think it's kind of elementary. So I would never go for like a bright pastel or a neon color. It looks too childish or too just elementary. So I just pick a color that I like that looks good on me. Just how like you pick any clothes or clothes color, like we all have those colors that you're like, dang, like I look good in this. So then that's probably something you'd want to pick. And then you have those colors that are just like I don't look good. Like I don't look good in yellow. I'm blonde. I don't want to look like a canary. So I would never wear a yellow suit. Orange, like your skin is orange on stage. So don't pick an orange suit. You'll literally look like an orange. So
low carb meal.
You're kind of breaking up a little bit. What was that last question?
I know. Yeah, what is your favorite low carb meal?
Actual meal? I mean, it's not like real food. Probably there's like, it's floating around. It's probably really cliche, but it's called like the 1-carb waffle or 1-carb pancake or something.
Oh.
So it's I know any protein that's like a whey protein casein blend. You can't use just whey. You can't use just casein. Mixed with 1 egg, whole egg. You have to have the fats from the yolk to keep it moist, and a little bit of baking powder, and a little bit of water, and you just cook it up like a pancake. And if you have fats, I would do like grass-fed butter on it, and like a sugar-free pancake syrup. You could use Wadas, or else I sometimes just like water down like the sugar-free pancake stuff. It's essentially almost the same. So I guess like that's not really like a real meal. Like it's not real food. If I had to pick like real food, I would do like, I really like snow peas with butter and chicken. So like any vegetable really that's not like a super starchy vegetable. I think like a serving of snow peas is maybe 5 carbs, and then chicken and butter. That's a real meal.
Okay. Yeah, very good. And then another one here. I thought this one was pretty funny. What do you like to do when you're hangry at work?
When I'm hangry at work. So for those that don't know, I work as an event planner. And when you are planning events, there are a lot of food-related events. And there is dessert being shoved in your face every 5 minutes. And there is cocktails offered at every party. So I guess when I'm hangry and those situations are happening, I mean, like, I hate to say it, but I just, like, suck it up. There's no use, like, getting yourself so worked up about something if you can just, like, brush it off. Like, it sounds really cliche, but, like, I mean, taking a deep breath, remembering your goals, remembering that everything is, like, temporary. So whatever you're mad or hangry about, I don't even know if she's, like, asking, like, what do I do for food, or, like, what do I do with, like, attitude, I guess. I try not to
it's just, like, how you handle it, I guess.
You just handle it. Like,
handle it.
You can't take things personally. You can't, like, stress or get yourself worked up about things. Because in the end, like, it's not going to do you any favors to get mad about something that's out of your control. I guess anytime you're mad at work, really, whether you're hangry or not, you just have to take a deep breath, walk away from the situation, remember your goals. I guess if you're, like, hangry, like, you're hungry, Diet Pop.
Diet Pop, yeah.
Yeah,
good one.
I guess if I'm, like, if she means, like, hangry and you're just trying to get from, like, point A to point B, like, between meals, I guess, like, chew some gum, take a walk, whatever you need to do. Water is always good. I like a Diet Coke or something, but I try and just remember also if you're at work, like, you need to keep work at work and prep outside of work, because I take my job seriously, and I don't want, like, anything prep related to affect my job or my ability to work and perform well. So I try and keep the two separated.
Right. Very good. And then one last question from Ashley, and then we'll move on. She said, what is your favorite thing about competing? And once again, I thought this was a really good question.
Oh, gosh, that's so fun. The meal after.
The meal after.
No, I'm just kidding. That is fun. But I think my favorite thing about competing, honestly, like, is show day. And it's not so much like the day itself and, like, the makeup and like looking pretty and, like, taking pictures. It's seeing, like, I'm kind of, like, I don't think I'm, like, a beauty guru or anything, but, like, I'm more of a tomboy, I guess, than anything. So, like, seeing yourself, like, the final product on show day is really cool. Like, it's so cool because your entire prep, you're like, you're so busy prepping food, doing your training, doing your cardio. You look like hell the entire time. Like, I just, like, something can sacrifice. So you don't really realize, like, how much work you did and how you look until, like, you have your hair done, your makeup done, your tan done, and you take that picture and you, like, look at it and you're like, holy shit, like, that's
They're like, wow.
Just see it all come together and, like, know that, like, all of the work you
Yeah.
did, like, in your off season, in your prep, like, all of that is ready to go and right there. Like, it sounds cliche. Like, I care about placing. Obviously, I'm a freaking competitor. Like, I want to win and I want to do well, but, like,
Right.
I care more about, like, the effort that I make and, like, knowing that it's, like, the end result is, it's there. And, like, finally, like, being able to see that part, I guess.
Yeah, very good. All right, so we'll move on to the last person who asked some questions here, and then we'll wrap it up. I believe this is one of your clients. Get Fit Nick. Is that ring a bell? Am I saying that right? So she asked, she asked, what are some good things to overcome period cravings during prep?
Oh man. Once again, like, I don't want to sound like cliche, like drink diet, like hot chocolate, like, or like have a chocolate rice cake or whatever, but mentality is everything. Like, you will never overcome those cravings. Like, I don't care how many like sugar-free chocolate puddings you eat, or like how many like chocolate protein puddings you make. Like, those cravings are there. They're there to stay. Like, you can minimize them. You can, like, try your best to manage them. And I would say to do that, like, make sure you make food that you like, that you can look forward to. Because if you dread every meal and then you have cravings on top of that, it's just a recipe for disaster. So I guess learning to accept the cravings. Like, it sounds really cliche, but sometimes the more energy you spend trying to fight them and trying to ignore them, instead of just being like, okay, they're here, they're not going to go anywhere no matter what I do, I'm just going to ignore it, because there's nothing I can do. There's ways to suppress it. Like, there's ways to kind of manage it. You can have those little things in there, like chocolate rice cakes, and I mean, if your macros are high enough, like, you can eat real chocolate. But, like, to me, sometimes, like, real chocolate just makes me want more chocolate. So, like, kind
more
of
chocolate.
Like, like, sometimes, like, you're like, oh, well, that was, like, that one Oreo that I had post-workout. Like, that was good. But, like, now I want, like, 5 more crunched up in Ben & Jerry's. Like, there's ways to manage it, but I don't think you're ever going to fully, like, get rid of it. And I think the sooner you realize, like, these cravings are here to stay, I'm not going to get rid of them, it's time to just, like, brush it off my shoulder and move on with my day.
Okay. And then I guess there's just one more question. Who are some of your favorite competitors to follow and to keep up with? So, not to put you on the spot if you didn't look at this one already, but who do you enjoy following that is a bikini competitor?
Oh man, there's a lot. I'm like on the spot now. I'm trying to remember them all. I think I follow a variety of competitors for a variety of reasons. I really like, you probably know who Lauren Conlon is. She's an IFBB bikini pro.
Yep.
She is very talented. She's very smart. I think she has her, I want to say PhD, in something, maybe PhD in exercise science related. Not 100% sure, but I know she's got the knowledge. She's got a very scientific approach to her preps. So I really like following her for that reason. And then she also just has a beautiful look to her. I like following, you might know who do you know who Stacey McLeod is? Probably not. She's one of my favorites to follow. She brings like a harder look to the stage, like super, super lean. Like really, really, really nice teardrop glutes, like super conditioned. I like following her for that reason. And I think she's in her upper 30s. So it's cool to follow like some of the older women that aren't like 21, super like anabolic, like in their early stages of growth, that have spent
Yeah.
like a decade plus in the sport, it's fun to follow those older women that you kind of be like, well, dang, if I had a few more years and a few more years, like I can hopefully ideally someday get to that conditioning. I like following, her name's Jessie Palmer. She's an IFBB pro. She's also a dental hygienist. So like dental hygienist in the morning, IFBB pro at night. I guess if you ever look to follow people, try and be realistic about who you follow too. It's helpful to follow people that love to compete, but it's not like their whole lives. They don't do it for a career. And also just be careful about who you follow, because it's easy to fall into the comparison trap. Like, it's okay to look at people for motivation and inspiration, but you should never like compare yourself, I guess, to that you follow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And then she asked one more question. I don't know if she's looking for a legitimate answer. She said, "Why are you such a great coach?" So I guess that was her final question.
I guess if you're going to be a coach, I think something I pride myself in, and probably something you pride yourself into, is communication. I think I'm very communicative with my clients, and I'm very informative. So if they ask a question, I explain it, and I explain it thoroughly, and I explain my why. I don't ever give anybody like a protocol or direction without like an explanation. So I think providing clients with knowledge, almost so that they're setting themselves up for success when our time's done working together. Being honest, being patient, and I think something that makes a good coach, and you'd probably agree with it, is that I'm passionate. Like, I'm very passionate about the sport, and I think it shows in a coach. Like, you can't, for somebody who is a coach, you have to love the sport, and you have to be enthusiastic for your competitors.
Yep, absolutely. Well, all right, Julie, I will cut it off there. I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your evening for joining us today on this weekly Wednesday live Q&A. Hopefully a lot of bikini competitors learned something today. I know I learned a few things just from Julie as well. It's always nice to hear a different perspective. So hopefully, you guys learned something. As always, we'll continue to have these weekly Wednesday Q&As. Maybe I'll bring on some more guest stars. Who knows? But thank you again, Julie, for joining us. And I'll let you close out my video.
All right. Thanks, Brandon. I hope that some people enjoyed it and they've got some information. Sorry about all the technical difficulties, but yeah, it's always a pleasure. And if you have any more questions bikini related, I'm always happy to answer questions.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Julie, thank you again, and everybody have a great night.